My daughter looked me straight in the eye and said, "Don't be dramatic. I sold Dad's Rolex. I deserved a vacation." My chest tightened, but instead of breaking down, I stood taller than I ever thought I could that very night. I began a quiet plan she never saw coming. And trust me, this was only the beginning. Before I share the story, I'd love to know, how are you doing today? And where are you listening from? I started the morning the way I always do, wiping down the counters, setting the kettle, and glancing at the oak hutch where my husband's Rolex rested every night. That little velvet tray, pressed just enough to show the weight of the watch, had been my comfort. It was part of my rhythm, like folding laundry or humming gospel on a Tuesday. But today the tray was empty, the cloth cool to the touch. My hand searched the drawers, the piano top, the jewelry dish, every surface where I'd ever laid it while cooking or paying the light bill. Memories flooded back. My husband used to wind that watch before church, careful with each click, as if time itself listened to him. The sound wasn't just mechanics, it was patience. It was his promise to keep us steady. Now silence filled the kitchen. My chest tightened as I turned toward the island. Callista sat there, scrolling her phone, nails tapping the counter. A mug of coffee had gone untouched beside her. I steadied my voice. Years at the bank taught me composure when the vault screamed inside. "Where's your father's watch?" I asked, low and calm. She didn't flinch. Callista sighed, not even looking up. "Don't be dramatic. I sold it. I deserved a vacation." Her words landed like a slap across my cheek. At that very moment, our neighbor slipped in through the side door, holding a pie plate, cheerful until silence cut the air. She froze, eyes wide, caught between us. I asked one question. As if reading a line item, "You sold a dead man's watch for a trip," Callista shrugged. Her face lit blue by the phone screen. "It's old, Mom. You cling to grief like it earns interest." She said it with a smirk that cut deeper than any curse. My neighbor shifted awkwardly, murmured something about casserole cooling, and backed out, the door whispering shut behind her. The keys clattered on the marble as Callista tossed them down. "Pilates," she chirped, walking out without waiting for my answer. I stared at that empty tray, picked it up like a folded flag, and set it back gently. The house groaned as the HVAC kicked in, leaving me alone with the echo of her words. I wrote them down on a sticky note, tucked it into my checkbook. Because anger fades, but paper endures. I couldn't let it rest. I drove downtown to Ansel Rook's pawn shop, the one with bars across the windows and a neon sign buzzing against the cold air. The counter glass reflected my face and the bare circle on my wrist, a Rolex, late 70s. I asked quietly, "Did it come through here?" Ansel squinted at his ledger and tapped the screen. Recognition crossed his face when he noticed my church pin. "Yes, ma'am," he said carefully. "One did, but it's gone. Cash buyer, quick turnaround. I don't know where." I swallowed hard. He added, almost kindly, "Looked well cared for. That did nothing for me. Care without custody is an empty comfort." Back in my car, I folded my hands on the steering wheel, just as I had before staff meetings years ago. Collect the facts, keep them straight, protect the principal. And the principal, this time, was me. I recorded a voice memo date, time, names, exact words, witness present. Then I texted Callista. "Do not destroy or alter any records of sale or travel." Short, precise. The velvet tray lay beside me on the seat. Light as air. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. The voicemail transcription lit the screen. "This is Ansel Rook. Ma'am, you need to hear what we found inside the watch." I froze, breath sharp. That watch wasn't just a keepsake, it had carried something more. The voicemail from Ansel wouldn't leave my mind, so I called him back before the coffee finished brewing. I set the phone on speaker, pen ready, like I used to when auditing loan files. He explained that a watchmaker had opened the back of the Rolex to verify it, and a thin panel shifted. Beneath it lay a hidden compartment, and inside, something small enough to seal into a craft envelope. His shop stamp and the technician's initials were across the flap. The watch itself was long gone, sold fast to a cash buyer, but the envelope remained. I won't risk mailing it, he said. I asked for a typed memo and a receipt to accompany it. Paper over panic, that was my rule. As I wrote the date and time, I reminded myself, when your heart runs hot, let your paperwork run cold. At the shop later that day, Ansel's manner showed caution rather than guilt. He laid the envelope on the counter like it might break. The paper carried the stamp, the time, and the technician's mark. He handed me a memo describing exactly how it was found. No rummaging, no tampering, just discovery. I inspected, but didn't open it. My husband's initials appeared in the text, alongside a date we both held dear. I signed, he countersigned, and he said, "I'd want the same if it were mine." I tucked it into my bag with steady hands. Chain of custody is how you keep truth from getting lonely, I whispered to myself, driving home. I felt the envelope pressing its silence into my side. At a red light, temptation whispered, but I kept discipline. I carried it inside like it was an infant, set it in my lockbox, photographed everything, and sent copies to my own email. By the time I made tea, my phone began buzzing with group texts. Callista had found her stage. "Mom's been fixating on Dad's old things. She wrote to our relatives. I'm worried. Does anyone know a grief counselor?" Thorin chimed in, "We just want her safe." The watch was clutter. The word clutter stabbed deeper than insult. A cousin replied with praying hands. Another hinted that maybe I was slipping. My hands shook, but I typed one message. "Please keep any concerns about my health off group texts. Put them in an email with your name on it." Silence followed. I screenshotted it all. Screenshots don't gaslight. Concern without consent is just control in church clothes, I muttered. An hour later, the garage door groaned. Callista walked in with Thorin, their smiles rehearsed. They set cookies on the counter and slid me a pamphlet. Healthy Transitions for Seniors. She touched my arm. "Mom, you've been off. Therapy could help. Maybe we should handle your bills a while." Thorin laid a folder between us, full of discussion points about downsizing. I answered evenly. "If you have a proposal, put it on letterhead and email it." I flipped the pamphlet face down. No theatrics, just a calm refusal. A calm no is louder than a loud yes you'll regret. I thought. After they left, I documented the encounter date, time, words spoken, my reply. I placed their folder beside the lockbox. Not inside. Pressure belongs in daylight, not hidden. I forwarded screenshots to a new email thread labeled Family Medical Claims. Then I slid the envelope back into steel, moved the box higher on the shelf, brewed a decaf, and let the weight settle. Protection isn't paranoia. It's love with a filing system. By dusk, I had written in my planner tomorrow, open envelope at 9 a.m, recorder on. I placed the key inside my Bible cover, where my hand would find it before dawn. And as the house creaked, I told myself, when the night is loud, promise the morning you'll listen. At exactly 9 o'clock, I set the blinds half open to let the soft winter light fall across the kitchen table. My phone was on airplane mode, recorder app glowing, a paring knife at my side. The lockbox key felt heavier than it should as I slid it into the steel and turned. Inside lay the craft envelope from Ansel, perfectly centered on my legal pad. I snapped photos of its front and back, speaking the time and date aloud into the recorder. With one steady slice, I opened it. A folded letter on cream paper slipped out, my husband's familiar initials marking the corner. Beneath a brittle strip of adhesive clung a micro SD card. I bagged the card, flattened the letter under a glass dish, and breathed in as if air might steady the moment. Open slowly what was sealed in love. Speed is for mistakes, not for memory, I whispered. His words greeted me like a hand I hadn't held in years. He listed dates only we marked together our wedding, his promotion, the day he bought the watch. He instructed me to trust only the will in our safe deposit box at Peachtree Bank. Box 214. He warned me that sentiment could be twisted and told me to lean on procedure witness signatures. Cameras rolling, bank officers present, the SD card. He wrote carried account summaries and a notarized memo he had preserved. If you're reading this, he wrote, someone close has mistaken want for need. I folded the letter carefully into an archival sleeve, logged every step into my recorder, and reminded myself feelings heal, records hold. I moved with purpose before grief could muddy my hands. I photographed the letter and card, emailed them to myself, and printed copies for both my fire safe and the discreet folder in my trunk. Redundancy wasn't paranoia, it was foresight. I called the bank to schedule a visit with an officer tomorrow at 10 sharp. Then I poured coffee, letting routine smooth my pulse. If grief is a storm, logistics are sandbags, I told myself. The garage door rattled. Callista and Thorin walked in mid-sentence. Mom, quick thing, we booked a notary for noon to help with paperwork. They laid a folder down draft. Power of attorney, HIPAA release, all dressed in polite fonts. I didn't move from my chair. I don't sign legal documents without independent counsel. Email them to me. No house visits. Callista's smile trembled. You've been confused, she said carefully. Thorin tapped the blank signature line like a drummer waiting for applause. Without raising my voice, I slid the folder back. My phone sat recording on the table. Repeat your request, I said evenly. Their faces tightened. A boundary, said calmly, is a wall folks will test only once. After they left, I texted the family thread, no legal appointments in my home. All matters by email. I attached the timestamp photo of their folder. If they claimed concern, they'd have to stand in the light. I logged the whole interaction and filed it in my watch folder. Then I circled tomorrow's bank appointment in my planner and drafted criteria for an attorney independent, experienced, unlinked to my family. I slid the letter and card back into the lockbox, returned the key to my Bible cover, and let myself exhale. Courage didn't need noise. It needed order. Courage is quiet paperwork done on time. At 11:57, my phone buzzed with a calendar invite. I hadn't made notary 12:00 p.m. Kitchen at noon sharp. The doorbell rang. Through the glass, two strangers stood with a rolling notary bag, their smiles too polished to be sincere. I left the door latched halfway, my phone recording from the console. Business cards, please, I asked. Steady as a banker, checking IDs? They slid them forward, commission numbers printed in fine ink. Your daughter pre-cleared this, one said. My reply was crisp. No in-home signings, no counsel present, no consent. They asked to come inside to read the document title aloud. I repeated my boundary, snapped photos of their cards, even their shoes at the threshold. Then I closed the door gently, decisively. Courtesy didn't mean compliance. Polite is not permission. Courtesy doesn't sign your name. I saved the doorbell cam clip immediately, labeling it 12:03 p.m. Notary attempt front door. I dropped the photos into my watch file, emailed myself a copy, and wrote a brief, time-stamped memo: who came, who scheduled, what they asked, what I declined. No drama, just data. Then I texted Callista and Thorin future proposals by email. No third parties at my door. Screenshot, saved, filed. 2 printed copies of the memo, one slid into the fire safe, one tucked into the folder in my trunk. If it isn't in ink, it's just air. That evening, a church elder sent me a reminder about the monthly brunch. Callista already RSVP'd for you. The message read, I decided to attend, carrying a pound cake and patience. I charged my phone, cleared storage for photos and audio, and packed a thin notebook. I picked my battlefield, a seat near the serving line where many eyes and ears would naturally gather. I rehearsed 3 sentences I would allow myself if provoked. Nothing more. Pick your ground, and the storm has less places to hide. Sunday morning, the fellowship hall smelled of coffee and cinnamon rolls. I had just poured sweet tea when Callista tapped her spoon against a glass, phone in her other hand. Vacation photos flashed her laughing on a beach, Thorin nodding like a bobblehead. Decluttering, she called it, finally taking care of myself. Someone asked how she managed the trip. She smiled wide. Sold a watch was just sitting around. Forks stilled, Eyes turned, and the word Rolex floated through whispers. I poured water for the woman beside me and said evenly, "Some things sit because they're being safeguarded, not forgotten." The hush that followed felt heavier than any hymn. In the South, folks butter biscuits and rumors the same way, thick. Callista's grin widened. It was junk. Mom sentimental to a fault. Heads tilted, waiting for my outburst. Instead, I said one of my rehearsed lines, medical claims belong in a doctor's office, not over a buffet. Then silence. I asked a deacon for napkins, handed one to a neighbor who'd heard every word. She squeezed my hand, one quiet witness in plain sight. I scribbled a timestamp in my notebook, snapped a single wide photo of the room without faces, and slipped my phone away. Dignity is a period, not an ellipsis. Back home, I wrote a clean memo date, location, direct quotes, who was present. I stapled the church program for context, emailed myself a copy, and printed it twice. A voice note captured the tone and gestures, so memory wouldn't blur. Tomorrow at 10, I'd walk into the bank, key in hand, ready to see box 214. My phone buzzed with family thread pings, but I let them rattle unanswered. A witness is a mirror you can't argue with. Tomorrow, I won't bring a pen to church. I'll bring a lawyer to the truth. I woke before dawn, choosing my armor with care navy suit pressed, pearl studs in place, leather folder under my arm. Traffic through Atlanta crawled with the usual Monday rhythm buses sighing, joggers pounding the sidewalks, horns impatient. I kept my checklist alive in my head ID. Key, memo. Recorder file cleared. Each red light turned into a whispered prayer. Let the paper say what my memory cannot prove. Hope is fine, but documents drive. At Peachtree Bank, a young officer in a navy blazer met me with steady professionalism. We signed the log, then descended into the humming cold of the vault. My key turned in box 214, and inside lay a sealed envelope with my husband's unmistakable handwriting. Alongside it, a notarized will packet. I unfolded the first page, and my breath caught. Clear division of assets. My name as executor, and in bold type. His instruction the Rolex designated as emergency vessel. Further pages invalidated casual transfers. Warning specifically against family pressure. A notarized memo aligned perfectly with the micro SD card from the envelope at home. For a moment, grief and relief braided together, I could almost feel him guiding my hand across the page. A promise on paper can outlive the lips that spoke it. I asked for certified copies, each stamped and notarized by the officer. Quietly, I photographed every page, uploaded them to a secure folder, and printed one set at the branch. The originals went back into box 214 untouched except by procedure. Only the certified set traveled with me in a slim folder. In the cafe corner of the bank, I dialed the elder law attorney referral line. By the time my coffee cooled, I had an appointment secured for Friday morning. Redundancy is how truth rehearses. By afternoon, the storm moved to my doorstep. Callista and Thorin's car sat in my driveway, trunk open with a banker's box brimming with papers. I stepped inside to find my kitchen counter littered with financial statements. "We're helping organize," Callista said. Voice sugary. Thorin spread out one document, a draft petition for guardianship. Another listed supposed erratic behaviors. "We've spoken with a doctor. He claimed about your memory decline." My spine stiffened. "Gather these," I ordered, stacking the papers into a neat pile. I photographed each page before sliding them back across the counter. My tone stayed low. "Steady email your claims. I have counsel now." Their smiles faltered. If someone fears sunlight, they're not carrying truth. By evening, my phone pulsed with social media pings. Callista's post read, "Caring for aging parents who refuse help is heartbreaking." Attached were photos from the church brunch. Even the pound cake I brought, captioned with insinuations, "She obsesses over trinkets, neglects her health. She never named me, but everyone local knew." Comments bloomed sympathy mixed with gossip. I didn't type a single word in response. I screenshotted every post, every comment, dropping them into my watch file. Instead, I sent a note to my church elder. Any questions about my health must be asked of me directly. Silence online is not surrender. It's strategy. That night, chamomile steam rose as I spread the day's receipts across my table. Vault confirmation. Driveway ambush. Social smear. Certified will copies locked in the fire safe. Duplicates sent to my attorney. Screenshots stapled behind the brunch memo. A paper trail forming like stepping stones. Tomorrow would not just be about documenting it, would be about pushing back. Preparation isn't paranoia. It's how peace survives. Tomorrow, they won't just see me recording, they'll see me fighting back with law. By sunrise, my dining table looked more like a war room than a breakfast spot. Certified will copies, the vault memo, and photos sat in neat rows, each page flagged with sticky notes and labeled like exhibits. I drafted a one-page boundary and notice all proposals must come by email. No in-home meetings. Every claim backed by documentation. Then I wrote a neutral timeline, Rolex missing, pawn shop, envelope, vault like an audit report. Not a mother's cry. I practiced a 30-second statement out loud until it fit smooth in my mouth. Short and calm, at 5 o'clock sharp. Whether provoked or not, my auto email would send, "Strategy is grief that learned how to stand." I picked up my husband's letter again, his handwriting still sharp on cream paper. He had called the Rolex an emergency vessel, not a trinket, and reminded me procedure over pleading, proof over persuasion. I slid the micro SD into a reader. Files bloomed PDFs of account summaries, a notarized memo, and a short audio where his voice said my name, steady as Sunday prayers. Tears rose, but I didn't drown in them. I copied the files onto 2 drives, labeled each, tucked one in the trunk folder. Love that plans ahead is a shelter you can enter in any weather. By midday, I texted Callista 15 minutes, cafe by the pharmacy. She replied with a thumbs up that felt like a smirk. I arrived with my folder shut. She leaned back with a sigh, called the watch junk, then pivoted. "We need to manage your bills," I answered with my 30 seconds, sliding my boundary and notice across the table. Thorin showed up late, trying to steer toward guardianship. I repeated, "Put it in email. I have counsel." I paid for my coffee, stapled the receipt to my notes. A short no protects more than a long fight ever did. On the drive home, Zinnia's message lit my phone. "Grandma, I think Mom messed up." Attached was a screen recording. In it, Callista filmed a mirror selfie, Rolex on her wrist, captioned, "Before I make this trip happen," geotagged 2 blocks from Ansel Rook's shop. The metadata lined up within hours of the sale. Zinnia added, "It was in her memories." Her words trembled between loyalty and fear. I told her she did the right thing. Kids shouldn't carry adult secrets. I saved the video, exported backups, logged every detail. Truth doesn't always knock. Sometimes it DMs. I phoned Ansel, confirmed his technician's timestamp. It matched the video metadata. He agreed to email a statement about the discovery, plain and factual. Then I called Osric Kenter's office. When I mentioned guardianship and financial exploitation, the assistant moved my consult from Friday to Thursday. Osric himself rang back, requesting a packet, will copy, pawn memo, story screen record, today's cafe receipt. He told me no more debates. Let the letters talk. I wrote that line on a sticky note above my phone. When the law speaks, stop repeating yourself. By late afternoon, I assembled the packet, zipped the files, and sent them to Osric. His read receipt popped like a quiet amen. I filed Zinnia's clip under third-party evidence with a note protector. Use only if necessary. At 5:00 p. sharp, my auto emails launched the boundary and notice and a litigation hold request. I sat by the window with tea, watching the street look perfectly ordinary, which was its own kind of mercy. A deadline is a promise you make to your future self. 3 minutes later, my doorbell rang, and through the glass I saw a process server, paper in hand, and my daughter's name on the envelope. The doorbell chimed just as the sun folded itself into evening shadows. I had my recorder running on the hall table. Habit now more than paranoia. A man in a dark jacket stood outside, verifying my name before sliding a thick envelope into my hand. "Service completed," he said, reading the caption and the hearing date out loud. I asked him to spell the court's name and repeat his badge number, writing it down neat as I'd done 1,000 times back at the bank. I signed his acknowledgement, photographed it beside my wall clock, and shut the door softly. Fear burned in my chest, but the tiled floor of facts held me steady. If fear is a fire, facts are the tiled floor you stand on, at the kitchen table. I slit the envelope and unfolded the petition. Words spilled across the pages. Progressive confusion, unsafe home management, financial obsession with trinkets. Each accusation felt like ash, but I grabbed my highlighters. One color underlined the claims, another tied them to proof vault log, certified will, brunch memo, pawn record. When the petition said refusing care, I matched it with the doorbell cam of uninvited notaries. I made a simple table claim versus counterproof, dates attached. Then I printed it, clipped it to the petition, and emailed a copy to Osric Claims Proof Quick Index. Smoke looks like fog until you learn the streets. By midnight, I knew what trap to set. Georgia was a one-party consent state. I drafted 3 questions to bait Callista. How much did you get for the watch? Was the trip worth selling? Dad's gift, why file guardianship without asking me? I rehearsed my voice low, not sharp. A good trap isn't cruel. It's a mirror put in the right light. The next afternoon, I sat in my car, windows rolled up tight, recorder on. I dialed her number. "Baby, I want to smooth things out," I said, easing the words like honey. She sighed, relief in her voice. "How much did the shop give you?" I asked lightly. She answered quick the amount, adding, "They said cash is easiest." My pulse jumped, but I kept still. I missed the watch. I said, "Dad called it our emergency vessel." She snapped back. It was just sitting there. That trip was the only thing I've done for myself in years. Then came the gold her reason, because you won't sign the POA, and you're making things complicated. I closed with, "Put your reasons in an email so I remember right." Pride made her agree. People who need control forget that honesty loves a live mic. I sent the file to Osric, highlighting the timestamps, within the hour. He issued a preservation letter to Callista and Thorin, no deletions, no edits, every receipt, every post, every scrap of paper must stay intact. I printed 2 copies and laid them on my dining table. My war room lined with paper that didn't blink. Good paper doesn't shout, it stands and points. By evening, the current shifted. A church elder called me in. I came with no drama, just my table of claims and proof, the brunch memo, and Osric's letter. If anyone has concerns about my health, I said simply, "Ask me directly." He nodded. Later, he told me several members had gotten texts from Callista pushing her confusion story. He promised to raise it at the deacons' meeting. That night, a neighbor left a note on my porch, "I saw you handle yourself." That wasn't clutter. Gossip had lost its chair. As I snapped my binder, rings shut. My phone lit up with a new email subject line, "Proposed settlement from Callista." That morning began with the weight of Callista's so-called proposed settlement. I read every line, slow and steady. She promised to withdraw guardianship if I signed a trimmed-down power of attorney, agreed to grief counseling, and pledged silence in public. I forwarded it to Osric. His reply came crisp: "Withdraw now. Write a formal apology. Repay the Rolex proceeds within a week. No power of attorney. No exceptions." I added 1 sentence of my own, all communication in writing. No visits to my house. Then I printed the email chain, slipped it into my binder under offers and pressure, and laid my navy suit across the chair. Don't trade your fence for flowers. They wilt faster than you think. At Fulton County Probate Court, I walked in with Osric by my side, binder tucked under his arm like scripture. Callista and Thorin sat 2 rows back, whispering with their heads bent low. My breath was calm, palms pressed flat on my skirt, church quiet. The clerk called my name. We rose. I nodded once toward Ansel Rook in the gallery. He gave a barely visible tap on the ledger in his jacket. Outrage is loud. Order is effective. The hearing opened with Osric's table, claims versus proof. Confusion. He countered with vault logs and certified will. Refusing care, answered by the doorbell video of notaries barging uninvited. Financial obsession refuted with the pawn memo and chain of custody. Then Ansel testified how his technician uncovered the hidden panel, how he logged times and sealed evidence. His words never shook. Osric cued my recorded call, Callista, admitting cash from the sale. Admitting she filed guardianship because I wouldn't sign a POA, the judge's pen paused mid-stroke, under seal. Zinnia's video of her mother's mirror selfie confirmed it all. I stood to read my 60-second statement, clear voice. No heat. I am competent. I keep records. I retain counsel. Truth doesn't need makeup. It needs a microphone. The judge ruled fast and firm. Petition dismissed with prejudice. Protective order against further interference. Petitioner to pay my attorney's fees. All digital evidence preserved. Consequences are just truth with paperwork. In the hallway, Callista tried another bluff, offering partial repayment, suggesting a family meeting instead of lawyers. Osric shook his head. All proposals go through the court or not at all. I added, return the proceeds in your posts, or the next paper has a sheriff's badge on it. She flinched. A deal without accountability is just decor, later in Peachtree Bank's conference room. Osric flipped to the no contest clause in the will. Any heir filing baseless petitions forfeited their share. Those funds would pass into a scholarship trust, earmarked for descendants like Zinnia. As we signed the notice, my phone rang. Ansel, the buyer, surrendered the Rolex under replevin. I'll deliver it. That evening, he placed the velvet box on my table. Chain of custody signed. I wound the watch. The click steady as my husband's hand once was. Justice is when a circle closes without you raising your voice. At home, I wrote 2 letters, one to the church elder, thanking him for guarding dignity, one to Zinnia, explaining the trust and her right to refuse secrets. I emailed Callista formally repayment apology, protective order attached. Then I set the watch in its tray, the tray in its place. I brewed tea and whispered my husband's name into the quiet. Peace isn't quiet, it's boundaries that held. A week later, Zinnia sent me her first scholarship application and the watch ticked like it always had, right on time.